So I won't go into detail about the stuff we talked about last time, but just jog your memory that our agenda is over here on the left. Last time we had a much larger group. We did introductions. We talked about vision and goals. We talked about non-goals. We ended on risks, and then we did kind of an affinity of risks and voted. And I think the votes are lost. So, but does anyone have any questions about the kinds of risks that came up? Is it difficult to remember now that it's been like 3 weeks? I know it is.
I remember everybody agreed team velocity and capacity was the biggest risk we faced.
Okay. Yeah. Check out the comments.
Huh?
I opened the comments on that one, and that was definitely discussed.
Yeah.
Okay. So given that team velocity or just head count is a concern, let's keep that in mind as we talk through this. But as we progress further, this part 2, we're actually going to be more of like in a generative mode, but being mindful of the constraints is really helpful. I imagine that the bulk of our time will probably be in the jobs to be done area. I think there's still some more refinement that needs to happen here, so we'll take time to do that here today. And do you all feel prepared or have maybe access to other resources where there are refined job statements as it relates to boards in particular?
I don't. Do you, Keenan?
I mean, we're still just working off the ones that we put in the handbook.
And they're in the handbook. Okay.
Yeah.
The handbook is here. Okay. Oh, that's a link to the issue boards doc link. Okay. Could we maybe drop the link to the handbook?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up.
Okay. Maybe it'd be more efficient just to take a screenshot of the handbook page and put it on here.
It'll be a big screenshot.
Oh, okay. I mean, just of the jobs, but yeah, if it's too big of a screenshot, that's fine.
All right, you want it there? Here, let me get, where's mural? Mural. There.
Cool. Awesome.
Did we both do it, Keenan? Oops. Anyway, it's there now.
I'm going to scooch these up top and bring these up here. Okay. Is that an Android phone I keep hearing? I don't recognize that bleep. Let's see here. Let's also maybe backpedal a bit to the personas. We have Parker, the product manager, Sasha, the software developer, and Delaney, the dev team lead. It might be more efficient for us to focus on one of these personas, but if you feel strongly that we need to focus on all 3 with these jobs, that's totally fair too. I just like to have a conversation about if we can focus on one or if we shouldn't. Just like open that up for discussion.
I would say Parker, Delaney, then Sasha, maybe, Keenan?
I mean, but a Kanban issue board's primary function is to allow a team of developers to manage work over, throughout a certain amount of time. Because we've taken this boards concept and we've brought it up to the highest level possible, and we're thinking about things like boards and for Kanban and Scrum and Epoch boards and swim lanes, like it's hard to separate. All 3 of these are going to be heavy users.
Okay.
So it kind of just depends on which type of board and which set of features we're talking about, it will determine who's the primary, and that's why I have a hard time saying not to focus on it. We should keep all of them in mind, I guess, and then Parker, Delaney as the primaries, I guess. But we also have to keep in mind Sasha as the day-to-day consumer.
Okay. Very fair. And who would like to talk us through these job statements? Let's see how these sit with us. Do you want to do it, Alexis?
I'm just thinking of these, like which ones are board specific.
It'd be good to maybe, highlight them or draw a box around them.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be the bottom 2 bullet points in that first section. Right? Okay. I'm just looking, I'm going down from the top. So, for the portfolio plans is where we start talking about Epoch boards and being able to move work across the workflow as I validate an idea. There you go. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any others here that are board related, where boards are either the entry point in the beginning, or at some point a board is a moment in the job, or are those the only 2 that it might be related to?
I feel like a lot of these are like monitoring the team's work in flight, right?
Yep.
Anything related to progress or reporting on progress or monitoring progress,
Yeah.
I would think.
Yeah, so report on output, both of those are applicable.
Okay. Cool. Any others?
Anything about reviewing a prior cycle?
No, because boards aren't retrospective, right? That's where the milestone and iteration reports come in.
Mm-hmm.
So they power those reports just by the nature of work moving through them, but that's not directly applicable to the board themselves, with the exception of monitoring progress. So yeah, I'd say the bullet point above that, actually, so the first 2 bullet points under improve output process, I think, are applicable.
Mm-hmm. So if a high risk item is like blocked, for example, or we see that it's high risk in general.
Yeah.
Cool.
What about like increment or sprint planning, Keenan? Like, are we using, okay, under plan and collaborate on value delivery. So when conducting, product increment or sprint planning, right? Is the board helping users visualize if they're committing to realistic amount of work, maybe through WIP, something like that?
Well, so generally WIP, like, that's after a plan. I think it comes down to how they're operating the board. I think a lot of users do have a backlog column that they then move work out of into a, ready for development column as part of their increment planning. And so I do think planning from the board is part of the problem space, because we don't have at least currently with GitLab, we don't have an actual backlog functionality.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Cool. That makes sense.
What I'm doing right now is copying these jobs over to the activities and workflow. Have we outlined the relevant jobs at this point?
Can you back in for me on this?
I think so. Yeah. I didn't really hear you, Keenan. Sorry.
Or on the mural, can you, on the mural view, can we zoom in a bit? Keep track of what. Yeah, I can barely.
Sorry. You're following my screen share. Sorry about that.
Oh yeah. All right. Yep. No, I think we're good.
Okay. Okay. What I'm doing now is copying them over to activities and workflows. Over on the far left. And what we'll do with these is first we'll probably prioritize them. The top one being most important, the bottom one being maybe less important. And then we'll basically create like a really low fidelity journey for each one, or at least like the top 3, just for the sake of time. So I need to copy the 2 about reporting on output. Then I think there's 2 more after that.
We got a lot of them.
Yeah. I'm glad we whittled them down to this point. And if any time you have feedback about how this is going, just make a suggestion.
I'm just looking at these. It'd be interesting to see if these are the same that we had assumptions about before. I'll move this back later. I'm just kind of looking.
Processes, so.
Huh.
Cool. 2 more to copy.
Yay.
Go way back over here.
I'm glad we scoped out automation, because in the hackathon they were talking about a lot of automation there. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and they actually kind of built some of their own, which is kind of neat.
That's cool. Yep,
Yeah,
there automation. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And they would be, who is they again?
It was the IT department.
Cool.
Yeah.
They wrote a quick little automated pipeline that when somebody adds an MR to an issue that isn't in progress, it automatically moves it to in progress. It's kind of neat.
Huh. How does it know that it's in progress?
Because it has an MR attached.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then the idea is then when WIP is, or work in progress is removed from the title, then it might move into like in review, for example, automatically. Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. We have, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What I'd like to do is maybe identify the top 3. And the way that we could maybe identify the top 3 would be, a couple thoughts come to mind. One would be something that we know we're going to act on within the next 1 to 3 milestones. So we could prioritize by, we know this is going to come up in the next milestone, or the one after that, or the one after that. So that could be a priority prioritization. Another one could be user impact. So looking at our 3 personas. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, the top card is Epoch Boards, which is coming up, so you can have that one.
Is that this one?
The very top, or wait, sorry. Yeah, when working through a list of validated ideas. I think my mural is behind. Let me refresh.
Oh, weird.
Yeah. But yeah, that's it. Yep. That's also the card under it. I guess that's why I was confused.
So these two?
Would it be the working through a list of validated opportunities, or working through a list of ideas?
So sorry. Yep, I was looking at it wrong. It's the second one. Yep.
Move that one to the top. So we'll workshop this one first. Which one might we do second?
When monitoring a team's work in flight, I need to be able to easily review and digest current progress. So this is one dash. It's one dash of swim lanes, and then another dash of the feature I'm going to push we build that they're not going to like, which is time in current state on the board.
Okay.
Is that also kind of the last one, Keenan?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty, yeah, it's pretty related.
For the first one, is there a primary persona for the first one?
Parker, it's the Epoch board.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna copy Parker. Okay. And then who's the persona for the second one?
Would that be Delaney and Parker, or mostly Delaney? I think Keenan.
Mostly Delaney.
Mm-hmm.
Delaney should be consuming and understanding and reporting to the PM to find better solutions. Yeah.
Okay.
On paper, it's not my job to figure out the team's velocity. Even though
On
that's
paper.
not from a job role perspective.
Yep.
Is there a job to be done here for Sasha?
When reporting status, I need to be able to ensure my status is accurate, current, quantifiable. That's part of it. I think that one crosses a lot, but when we talk about reporting status, making sure my issue's up to date, making sure it's in the right workflow, that has the right labels on it, the right way. You can interpret it that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
That'd be a lot of ICs, right? Like not even just Sasha.
Yeah. It's generic on purpose, right? There's a level of that applies to Parker. There's a lot of a lot of it actually applies to Delaney, but then as the individual contributor, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
mean, it could be design. I'm just saying, it could be designers. It could be really anyone using a board that's an IC.
Yeah. What's the status of the design?
Yeah.
What is the status?
What's the status?
All right. Well, let's workshop these three and then do a time check. And so, yeah, the purpose of this is to, and I made some handy notes here, identify the activities and workflows for each of the user roles and personas, scope to the immediate goals. Each participant will get a row and can use cards or sketches to communicate the workflow steps. So if we look at Parker, and Parker is working through a list of validated opportunities and needs to be able to understand effort and map ROI for each, so he can prioritize the right sequence of work. Let's, is anyone here familiar with user story mapping? Have you done that type of exercise before?
Yep.
Basically like a really lo-fi user journey. So we're gonna keep it really lo-fi and only use note cards. Now, you could also, if you believe that there's a screen we currently have in the product, you can totally drop that in there, make some comments on it. The real goal here is to find opportunities to either improve existing state or add new features. And we'll capture those and prioritize those after we do the workflows. Is that pretty clear what we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't have a lot of context. So ideally, Alexis, you and Keenan would collaborate here and start to sketch out a journey from left to right for that first one.
Okay.
And I'll just be here to I'll ask dumb questions. That's my job right now. And is the activity clear, in terms of the map and the journey, and that it's left to right?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, so I can kind of just start to talk through how I do this now and why it's frustrating.
Yeah. And ideally,
so
type as you talk if that's possible.
Hmm?
If that's possible, to kind of type as you talk.
Oh, okay.
That way we have it visualized.
Yeah, so we could kind of map out the current journey then, I guess, Keenan, what you go through now. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and think about what might be better.
Yeah, it could be a combination of current or desired, but.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think for that, then we'd probably, yeah, exactly, Alexis, we do an ideal. And then if we could break that down like step by step, if you think of it as goals or tasks.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just kind of moving things. So what would your ideal Epoch board be, Keenan?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's very much what you're already designing. It's a replication of my product validation workflow that we have in an issue board now that is just actually leveraged with Epochs and not fake issues or issues replicated in Epoch, right? So it's the same kind of thing. I need a board that has vertical columns that I can specify and build out a workflow so that I can track as I move an Epoch or an opportunity through each stage. And then also have the ability to customize that board to fit my individual or a team workflow with work in progress limits, filtering, configuration of the board, swim lanes. There you go.
Cool. And so if you think about like, another way to think about this too would be if we put ourselves in Parker's shoes, right? And when Parker, and this could be when Parker's not at the screen, and when Parker is at the screen, like think about it as a storyboard. That's what I mean by steps in the journey. So first, in order to map ROI, what are the steps that Parker takes, either outside the tool or inside the tool? Like one example would be,
yeah, sure.
Yeah,
so it's consolidation of customer and user research, some sort of financial modeling, usually done in Excel, linked into the issue.
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of like, what's before that even, I guess? Like what's, I guess just building a product, what sparks the need for this? But like what's that process like, Keaton?
Yeah, where does the story start?
I mean, as far as this, what we're doing here, right? This is assuming I have a set of validated opportunities, which means I'm halfway through my problem validation workflow. We know there's something there, and now we need to fill in all the details to put a compelling case together on why we should move to solution in design. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you say Parker is halfway through the product validation workflow, there are designs. Is that one of the preconditions for this?
I mean, I think it's going to be, it depends on what the Parker's individual workflow looks like, right? Sometimes the idea comes from a mock-up and you kind of have a initial design you're working on hypothesis through, right? I don't know. I feel like that can exist in different parts. Like ideation can happen through a bunch of different artifacts. This is, for me, this card specifically is like, I have an opportunity that I know is valid and I need to clarify and lock down. So that could have a design, could not. I could have 15 customer interviews under my belt. I could have one really, really good analyst report that's driving me through this. Little hand waving, but.
So yeah, that's great. If I might add like an even step further to the left, I'd say there's an idea, right?
Yeah, so I mean, the reason I'm drawing a dotted line is because it leans into one of the other cards that we decided not to prioritize in this discussion.
Which one was it?
Scroll left for me. Working through a list of ideas, and you need to be able to validate the opportunity is valuable, worth funding. I mean, they're two different, no, it's the next one down.
Oh, okay.
They're two different but very related steps, and this is where there's a breadth versus depth conversation with how GitLab can solve it. This combined with the other card are like full PPM solutions or like really robust product validation tracking tools, like kind of like AHA provides, or you've even seen in Rally and other tools in the past, right? So as far as we could probably combine those two job cards because we're solving a good chunk of it regardless. At least here at GitLab, like my product validation flow is these cards are that. They represent that whole flow I go through before I hand it off to engineering. But there's a difference between I have a list of ideas and hypotheses and requests and just all of this stuff that comes into the funnel. And then the other part of the process is like, okay, for the ones that have passed through the initial product validation steps, I now have more work to do to turn them into items that are ready to be actioned on.
Okay.
So.
All right. So let me let's take it from the top again. So again, this is kind of a nascent storyboard without any visuals yet. We usually work on, in storyboarding, we usually work on the storyboard descriptions first, because that's, the words matter a lot, and the words drive out like what Parker sees. So there's an idea, Parker gathers a list of opportunities to validate. Then Parker has an opportunity that he assumes is valid and wants to focus on. Then Parker, I'm assuming with the customer and with user research and financial, customer and user research and financial modeling is gathered.
This is my brain breaking, sorry.
All good. Customer, user research, and financial modeling are gathered. Then.
So like way further, there's many more steps. And then at some point, it's moved through the entire workflow.
Yeah.
And it could be handed off to engineering.
What if we unpacked this? And because this feels like there's a lot
this
more.
Is like way further in the future, yeah. Way further in the flow.
Not really further in the future, but it seems like there's more of the story is in this one thing, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, once I've got the point where, you know, we've got enough research and we know it's a viable option to go forward, we then move into what we generally are calling solution validation and design in some form, where we start, okay, how do we solve this opportunity? What does that solution look like?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And this is still at Epoch level, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you think this, where you see this story going, Keenan, is it always at the Epoch level?
Not always. But for Parker, and when we're talking about like an Epoch board or a PI planning board that you'd find in SAFe, like this is, I mean, again, the flow is already being done at the issue level, but then we run into a problem where you have an issue that needs to be fragmented into 6 issues because it got so big. And then you close that issue, even though it's still attached to the Epoch that you need to do the feature on. In reality, if we can actually do all this work at the Epoch level, we get rid of a lot of thrash and noise and maintain better organization of work in the tool. Because if I promoted an issue up to an Epoch, that issue gets closed. Everybody goes, "Why'd you close this issue? I really need this feature." And it's like, well, no, it got promoted. You need to follow this Epoch now, which has sub epochs and a collection of 42 issues to get us to where we need to go. We reduce and remove a lot of thrash if we can allow individuals to interact and manage an Epoch in the same way that we do our planning issues.
Say that again. You kind of cut out there.
Oh, sorry. We reduce a lot of thrash and
reduce and remove thrash, and then. Oh, did you capture it, Alexis?
If we enable the users to manage.
Keep doing what you're doing. I like it better.
Okay. Sorry.
No, yeah.
So enable users to do what? Sorry, Keenan?
Manage an Epoch across a workflow.
Yeah.
To manage the workflow at an Epoch level. At the Epoch level.
Well, no, because like the Epoch workflow might be completely different than an issue workflow, right? Like, yeah, let's say through a workflow. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's fine.
So that's a really good opportunity, and that's the kind of stuff that we'll any of these kind of really, this is a terrible color, but yeah, okay. So any of these pinkish ones, we'll actually later prioritize them over here on this prioritization board. So we'll actually talk about like the size of that effort and the user value. Just to give you a preview of the kind of thoughts that are going to drop out of this process we're in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Well, that was good. I like where this is going. And currently the experience is terrible. That's why there's a
He's unhappy. Yeah.
Is that like a dead person?
I don't know.
It is actually.
Let's go with that one instead.
There we go. Life is on the line here. All right. Well, anyway, I didn't want to disrupt the idea generation too much, but anyway, that's part of the structure of this. If we want to keep going on this thread, then that's great. That's exactly what this is for.
Do you want to talk about like another kind of idea here, Keenan, is the difference between the issue workflow and the Epoch workflow? Maybe elaborate on that.
I mean, it's hard to answer that question because it depends on the company and it depends on the team. We can talk about it from the GitLab perspective. I mean, it's similar in that a item of work is moving through disparate stages of a workflow. For an issue, that's generally going to be actual tactical work being done to accomplish something new or fix something that exists, right? I mean, the epics are just by nature a little more ethereal, right? It's more, okay, I have this idea. I've now turned this idea into an opportunity. I've now validated this opportunity. I am now trying to figure out how we solve this opportunity. Now I can hand this off to engineering and we can start saying, how do we build this opportunity? And then it transitions into the engineering workflow. So we can talk about it specifically for here. At the same time, it's really like enable individuals to set up workflows for their work and like empower them to move it through.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a general principle for the Kanban board, right?
We get too specific with it. We remove flexibility. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think what you just said there is a general principle for Kanban board, I think, or specifically for epics on a Kanban board.
I mean, I think it's pretty general for task boards at any level, right? Like if you really want to distill it down to the actual focus, it's like I need to represent a workflow and I need to enable people to move work through it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
At what point does this transition to the development workflow into Delaney's? Because that might be a good segue.
Yeah, so essentially it's at the point where we have a high-level idea of what the solution, the design is, and we're ready to start getting input from engineering on what it would take to accomplish it. And that's where we move something into, generally called planning breakdown.
Cool.
And then that moves into issues, right? So the process of breaking it down is breaking that epic into whatever, 10 issues, something like that, right?
Or epics, maybe, sub-epics and issues, but yeah.
So what about the sub-epics? Do they have to then move through they wouldn't move through another validation cycle, right?
I wouldn't say. Again, depends on the team and the company. I don't think so. Like at that point, sub-epics are more just like high-level organization of the work that's being done. So maybe they want an epic to reflect all the back-end work versus the front-end work. Or we usually do. The sub-epic becomes the work that collects the MVC. And then the next epic that we create, we start moving all the work that we descope out of the MVC into a follow-up iteration, right? So.
Mm-hmm. And the different teams, that would just be represented as like the columns on the issue board, right?
Say again?
Oh, like when we're talking about breaking down epics by team, like back end, front end, that would just be represented in their columns, right?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, I think that's an engineering prerogative.
Mm-hmm.
the Epic board wouldn't have anything scoping that, right? The issues are getting created and assigned to the Epic while it's in planning breakdown. That's probably happening outside of this view. I don't think it happens on the Epic board because we don't show issues. But at some point when the work seems to be quantified enough and granular enough, then the work can start moving into the engineering workflow, which is actually the tactical, this is ready for dev, move it through the development flow, the process.
So once it's, I guess this one, not to harp on it, but okay, it's been broken down, like once it's been broken down into like the MVC or non-MVC and those have issues within them, does that actual like broken down Epic matter at a board level anymore, Keenan? Or is it really just
it's at the end of the phase. Like when it's getting broken down, like then you eventually add a label to that Epic that removes it from your board, right? Like breakdown sufficient is probably what I would do. Okay.
So at that point, it's like less of a, like you said, ephemeral thing. It's more of like, this is just housing the more
and then it becomes
granular work. Oh,
right.
okay.
Then it's a reporting fact, and the Epic serves a different function. And this is where we get our roll-ups and our Epic tree features start becoming valuable, health status becomes valuable. This is when it would then probably start showing up on the roadmap and be tracked over time. So,
Yep. Like with the health status, all that stuff, yeah. Is there anything within or between these two? Gosh, I can't type today. Between these two cards that we want to expand on? It's weird that it does. Yeah, it doesn't show my cursor, but I'm clicking on like that one and this one. Is there anything between those two you see is missing, Keenan?
Between the
opportunity being validated and like ideation on what it could look like so that it could be passed out.
I mean, that's the whole thing. Like once it's validated, you move into solution, right? I think that validation process can be long, it can be short. It might get thrown back to the beginning of the workflow if you're totally off and you need to start over because you learned something new or you prove yourself wrong, right? But no, I mean, the ideation from solution is what happens, like where we go once an opportunity is validated enough to move forward in the flow.
Okay, so these are just all validation steps within here. Okay. And it could be moving back and forth.
Yep, just like a developer's issue can go from review back to ready for dev and review to block to ready for dev.
Yep, and like you said, we don't want to prescribe it. That could be different things to different users, right? These validation steps.
Because, for a lot of folks using a PI board, this validation isn't part of their job. They just get handed an Epic and they're told that's what they're doing next. And it's their job to move it through their workflow to break it into an actionable plan, right?
Yeah. In large organizations, that's really common, and people will often, they'll work on an Epic and not even really know what that effort is, what the big idea is really going to be. Think of a large bank or a large consumer electronics company. Some employees don't even know that they were working on a thing until their CEO goes on a live stream and announces it. Yep. So can you imagine doing validation in that kind of world? It'd be, challenging at a certain level.
Yeah, I think, yeah. So how does this help, like, walk me through if Donald, let's say, was looking at this Epic board, how would this help him?
I mean, this would be one, Donald has a couple very valuable things he can learn from this view. He knows what's coming immediately down the pipe. He can see first of all, it's like, what are we supposed to be breaking down into actionable issues? That's the first thing he's probably going to focus on, right? What's at the far right of this process? The next item might be what's coming over the next couple months? Like what ideas are in flight that I need to start thinking about because they're in the validation solution flow and what state they're in, right?
Cool. I think we're down in Delaney dev team lead land now. No?
You are, yeah.
Or is Delaney the persona for this current job that we're still in?
No, I
No.
mean, Delaney's a consumer of that information, I think. Like that this is a view I'll probably present while talking to Donald and John about, hey, here's the next thing we need to start breaking down. Here's why it's valuable. I can explain the methodology we use to get to where we are to validate it if they're interested in it. And then it's like, okay, like we need to start breaking this down so we can identify what we can accomplish as an NDC over the next, in the next release. Yeah.
Cool. And then I think this one segues to the next job to be done. Because the next job with Delaney is when monitoring a team's work in flight, I need to be able to easily review and digest the current progress so that I can confidently report to stakeholders and leadership.
Yeah. Now we're in the issue board, right?
Yes.
I mean, is it fair to move to that next workflow, or do you think there's more work to be done here on Parker's?
I mean, for me, like at least where we're at with boards, if we can, everything we just wrote out there would be a huge value add because it's a major gap.
Mm-hmm.
Let's name that gap now so that we can get it onto our prioritization canvas for later. Do we have a name for this opportunity, for this gap?
Oh, it's Epic product increment boards. Like, like we need to enable Epic planning via a board, via a workflow.
Oh, okay. That's the current work in flight.
Yep.
Right?
Is there anything else ideal? Oh, go ahead, Mike. You're going to ask the better
I think we're probably asking the same question, which is, what's like a smaller version of that statement? If you're doing the work in flight now, is there some specific aspect of that capability that we could name?
Visualize it. I mean, we need to visualize the planning that goes on with Epic. That it still doesn't really quantify the value provided.
Yeah.
Because I mean, part of it's a visualization, but it's actually just interaction, right? Like it's, I don't know, enable me to interact with an Epic to plan.
Mm-hmm. Another way I might ask that is, Alexis, you've been working on solutions for the Epic planning at the Epic level on the board. Can you think of any capability or behavior in the current designs that maybe you're currently working on, need to know it's scoped, or maybe it's de-scoped, and we need to highlight that?
Wait, can you kind of like repeat the last part of the question? It was cutting out a tiny bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the last part of the question was, can you think of anything that maybe has been de-scoped or deprioritized that would facilitate this particular moment in this activity or this workflow?
I mean, this relies on Delaney keeping track of the board for one, right? Anything that we've de-scoped? I don't think so. I think the main problem that we're having is that there's so many views and so many different boards, and it really relies on someone being on top of those and even knowing where they are, right?
I'll cite that as a challenge or an opportunity. It's hard to know which board is the right one for this stage in the product workflow. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. And I think we kind of touched on it even at like talking about workflow, right? Like keeping things up to date, that they're a single source of truth, that the labels that they're moving through the workflow, is the label updated, who owns changing that label, things like that, or also could impact some of the kind of like handoff of this work. in the boards.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you, Keenan? Could you ever see that being an issue?
Sorry, my dogs are barking.
Your feet hurt?
No, my actual dogs are barking.
But
I don't struggle with this, but I know other people do. But part of the reason this is hard is because all we have is issue boards. And by actually splitting out this functionality, I think it will help drive clarity, because the Epoch boards exist as a higher level planning function or a higher level planning area. And so you do get automatic segmentation there that should help drive some clarity.
Is it, and then what do you foresee having, I guess, a few different boards? It would be like, would it be the overall plan Epoch board, and then a portfolio management Epoch board, a project management Epoch board, a certify Epoch board, stuff like that, Keenan?
Probably, yeah. You know, and this probably go all the way up to like a dev section board that Eric Brinkman would manage or watch, right? And there's different views that'll be crafted, right? Like, you know, once we have this, like right now, like when an Epoch has work in progress, like you can't really see that on a board, but I could see a board that the product directors watch, and they can watch feature epochs move across a planned or validated planned NBC follow-up iteration category maturity something. You could track that too. So what we're actually going to enable a lot of more high level progress reporting for larger pieces of work.
And they could currently do that by labels, right? They're just not really able to visualize it. Is that?
Well, I mean, you can do it with issues, but those don't, that's not accurate, right? I mean, the only other visualization you have that kind of matches that is the roadmap, but that's not always the same. That's not always the view that they need. You know?
Mm-hmm. Well, they could go into the Epoch list and see sort of the status, right? But that's just like a list.
That's not, I don't know, that's not the Epoch's list primary goal. The Epoch list is not there to report. It's to find.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like forcing people to use things in ways maybe they're not intended right now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Any nuggets in there, Mike?
I gotta be right back. I need to check in.
No problem.
Oh. He's like, my dogs.
Yeah, was there anything that you caught, Alexis, that might be a nugget to put over on the feature prioritization?
I mean, I guess we're kind of solving for it. Just, we're solving for that, I suppose. Just the idea that we kind of like are making people hack different parts of the product, right? Like the Epoch list, and using labels in ways to kind of like solve this problem, right? But that's what we're working toward.
Okay.
I still think, this is, one of our main jobs is like crafting the right view. But then if there's a lot of views, it's like, how do you know which one is the right view for you? Especially if you're someone maybe like, maybe Parker may know, right? But Delaney, and then especially Sasha, is probably like, well,
yeah,
cool,
I mean,
like, where?
Point though, right? So I file this in the level of like, let's not pretend or treat our users like they're not smart. I know what boards I track because I bookmark them. Like, that's just what people do. It's like, I can go to my portfolio management board. I can go to Mark's board. I can go to Gabe's board. I know where they are in the drop-down lists. We have it documented in our handbook where our boards are and where you need to look. And part of the reason there's more boards than there should be is because we force people to create duplicate workflows because we don't have a view to track epochs through a workflow. So different departments create a board where they have mock epochs that are really just issues that they move through a planning process, so they have a visual. So then that's kind of that thrash and noise reduction we can accomplish here.
Okay. How's everybody feeling? We've been at this for about an hour. Want to do a check-in?
Good. I'm excited. It seems like we're, understanding the problem space.
How's your energy level in Keenan, like,
I'm tired.
on?
That's okay.
Yeah, we're good. We've been in a board world all day today, but that's fine. It's board.
I mean, it's all like a lot of this is fresh because this is what we spent the last 4 hours watching people struggle with. So
Yeah.
If any, I may have missed an opportunity to actually capture some ideas over here. That some feature ideas. They don't necessarily have to come from this workflow that we're doing now. Are there any feature ideas from your previous hackathon that you want to drop on here and try to prioritize?
Yeah, they're pretty granular, so they kind of there are a lot of like into the weeds items, but like one was the ability to like automate part of the workflow. If I move a ticket to this workflow, I want it to automatically assign it to this individual, right? So there's automation there. There was requests for more
automatic assignees.
Assigning and like workflow, like moving the workflow too. Workflow rules, I guess. Yeah.
Okay.
That was one of them, yeah. And then also like, how would you describe the changing the workflow based on like MR, Keenan? What would that be called?
So that's just automating the workflow, right? Like taking in data points outside of the board itself to move an issue through the flow.
Mm-hmm.
How about automated workflow state change?
Sure.
Status.
Yeah.
Status.
What about any of the like dashboards, Keenan? If they're creating the analytics around it?
Yeah, I mean, interesting, not directly board related. The actions of the issues and the individuals populate data that then make analytics and insights valuable. I think there are data and analytics we need to surface on the board to make them more valuable.
Like what?
I need to see how long a card has been in a workflow state. I shouldn't have to go to Sisense to get an accurate representation of how long tickets are sitting in the review column. I should be able to look at the board and go, that's been there for 14 days. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Sisense though is really interesting in that we've been prototyping these solutions to solve our own problem. And it's like at some point we could bring them into the product, right?
Yep.
What's another insight that you had?
They're having to do a bunch of stuff manually. Do you know what that was, Keenan? Or could you elaborate on that?
Notes. Details again.
That wasn't covered by one of these 3 automated topics?
It might have been.
Like, yeah, manually adding labels. That's all. Manually adding and removing labels.
Yeah.
Is a common one.
Okay, so we'll call that automated label. Is hygiene an appropriate word, or would you call it something else?
Yeah, that could be. Like a good example was saying if someone put assigning, yeah, maybe. Like so, right. For example, if someone has a.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking like the scenario was like, hey, there's an access request, right? And the manager came in and said, yeah, this is approved, but they didn't add the approved label. So it just kind of sat there for a few days. And then there had to be a bunch of back and forth conversation around like, hey, manager, did you actually approve this? Can you add the label because we cannot add it for you, even though you said it's approved? Like that is a scenario. Right?
So would that be like the manager says approved in a comment that they didn't change the label?
Yep.
Yeah, and only they can do it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to use natural language. All right.
Or just like, it's like, yeah, let them, go for their own work. There was some stuff around ORing.
Over here.
Yeah, they want to.
The ORing labels.
The level of effort's pretty high on that one.
Yeah.
One was more flexibility in defining a board list or a board column. Like they wanted to say like multiple labels.
Yep. To me, I would love to investigate that, or like, can we allow people to have their own custom titles, even stuff like that? But anyway, let's not write that down, maybe.
Yeah.
Also width limits, like improving width limits in general, which we kind of, that's already on the radar.
What would be an example of that improvement?
By
allowing you to do it by weight instead of issue count.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weight limits.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those ones that sounds really good. I don't know if an actual application it works. So that'll be one worth digging into.
Yeah, the whole practice versus theory thing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, cool. I'm glad we were able to do that.
The other big one, not a big surprise, an OR operator.
Yep.
An OR operator on a column rule, on a column definition?
Or just in the tool at all. So in the filtering and the board configuration.
Oh, okay.
And at the column level, though, I think that was part of that last thing we discussed with better definition, like label definition within the column. They wanted like 2 labels, or they wanted to configure that in a different way.
It should be in this column if it has this label or this label was one of the.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah, like if it has, column or like issue equals workflow design, then it is doing. It is in column doing. Like rules, right?
I'm guessing these folks use spreadsheets a lot too.
Yeah.
Like you just put a spreadsheet inside GitLab. Functional spreadsheet. All right. Yeah, if anything else comes up, just feel free to go over there and plop it in. But otherwise, we'll get back to the workflows. And I think we left off with, I think we came kind of to the end of Parker's flow, because then we started transition into things that Delaney cares about when monitoring a team's work in flight.
Yep.
So yeah, as long as your energy level is still good and you're in the mood, like, let's tell the story about Delaney here. The beginning, middle, and end of Delaney's journey.
Yeah, Delaney and sometimes Parker, right, Keenan?
Yep.
Sure. We could drop Parker in the appropriate points. And yeah, again, keep in mind, we're looking for gaps and opportunities. So feel free to write those up and drop them in the appropriate place too. With a pink.
So what is the part that's that overlap between the end of the Epoch board and then the beginning of the issue board, Keenan? Like what's happening to spark that?
So I mean, that's when the work's quantified and prioritized. It then moves through the developer workflow, which is represented by an issue board.
So Parker has some work, right?
Yep.
Like that's the start. Would it be on the Epoch board, or what is that ideal handoff there that maybe that we don't have even?
I mean, at this point, it's like, okay, I have a collection of issues that represent work that I need to prioritize, and they don't always come from the same Epoch. So I, as the product manager, are saying, look, these are the 12 issues we need to prioritize in the next sprint.
So we're doing like planning right now, right?
Well, I mean, you're asking where's the transition between the Epoch flow and the issue flow, yeah? Yeah. Now, this ticket specifically is talking about monitoring a team's work, which would be post-plan, right? So this is like during a sprint or iteration or whatever.
Okay, so a sprint starts, right? And then that's now is the job. Is that what's going on, you think, Keenan?
Yep.
Cool. Review and digest.
So I mean, and at this point, it's I need to be able to view the board and understand what stage work is in.
So is this making sense? Am I getting too high level right now? Sasha is now plural. So what is like, Sorry, I'm just reading this again. So why would Delaney be reporting to stakeholders and leadership? Like, what's happening there? Keenan?
Leadership wants to know when the work's going to get done. I mean, this is customers, leaderships, just me individually wanting to keep track and understand what state things are in.
Yeah, so like, hey, is this going to be done? Right?
Yeah, so I would swap out leadership for stakeholders.
Okay, so how is Delaney then using the board to answer that question?
I mean, so the workflow represents the stages that work is in. And so you're able to then say, look, so many issues are in dev, so many issues are blocked, so these issues are in review. You have a visual representation of where your work is in your workflow, and you can use that to understand the state.
So we know that maybe does this work though? It doesn't seem to maybe work that well. Do we know why?
Oh, I think we do a fairly good job at this. There's always more we can do.
Yeah.
But I mean, issue board state, like, I generally know what state something is in. I don't always know why or how long or what is needed to move it forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily a board problem, but it is related. Mike, can you scroll to the right in your view a little bit? Thank you.
Sorry, yeah. So the why or how long kind of seems like a pain point, right?
Yes.
So why, okay.
So the why is very difficult to solve, right? But the how long is something we can solve. That is in the realm of possibility in a short timeline.
Okay, so how are we going to solve that?
Showing
how would you envision solving that? Sorry.
Just a tiny number on each card that tells me how long it's been in that workflow state.
I'm just looking at it. Cool. I think this is like something we don't have that we need, right? So that would be like ink,
yeah.
Maybe?
That is something I'm going to push for soon.
Yeah. We don't have to think about how we would solve it necessarily, but we know we need, how is that going to help? Like, how do you envision that helping?
Well, it gives the data that is necessary to open up the right conversations. Parker, Delaney, Sasha all have an opportunity to talk between themselves on why that issue's there and what's needed to move it to the next stage. Yeah.
Discussed, yeah. And so really it's just like indicating like, hey, something's going on, right? Like almost like WIP. Like making it very obvious.
Yeah, same realm.
Oops. Sorry, my board is going insane. What about the why?
So the why we could solve somewhat, we already are kind of doing this with the blocked issue icon. We need to expand on that so it actually shows you what issue is blocking it. But then you can actually have a visual indication. This is blocked. That's why it's probably stuck in the spot. Most of the why is going to be if the users are interacting with the tool contained inside the issue or the MRs. So there's that in itself is probably a very deep hole we could go into to try to help provide insights on the board on why something is where it is, but I would not put that in something we're going to do soon.
What kind of insights are you thinking?
Maybe it's been sitting there because, it's got 60 failed pipelines, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Andrew's bringing me some coffee.
Nice.
Well, some
Yeah.
food.
That's
Hey,
service.
say
I
hi.
need to go. Hello. Ow. What
Whoa.
Okay, he's gone.
Wear that mask all the time.
Yeah, just, around me, because, I stink. I don't know. Oh, this is being recorded. No.
Don't worry, I'll edit
Yeah.
it. I'll edit it
No,
later.
I don't. Okay. Providing insights into the issues in each column. I don't know why they're there. All right. I don't know. Providing. That's one thing we could think about is, again, do we need to call these things columns or lists? Like very simple things like that. What do our users want to call this?
Let's say columns for now, since that's what we're typing. So we can worry about the list thing later.
Yeah. So we need like some analytics, better like insights within the board itself.
I mean, this is like lovable type functionality. So
Yeah.
we don't need to pick on it too much right now because we have a long way to go till we can get there. But I mean, simply the state that like users need insight, and so users need analytics, data that's presented at the right level. Then you move into a level of how do you turn those analytics into insights, right? So this is where we could provide reports that say like, look, the amount of time tickets are staying or being in this workflow is increasing steadily each iteration. If we could identify that and flag that, that drives a lot of value to the individuals and the users and the teams.
Yep.
Right?
What do you mean data provided at the right level?
Oh, just like, if we're looking at if we're running an issue board and having the data point on how long the ticket has been, or that issue has been in a workflow state, that's the right level, right? I don't know if I'd want that needs to be surfaced at the Epoch tree level, because the Epoch tree level isn't dealing with workflow states, right? So it's at the right data at the right time to the right audience is the next part of that.
Okay.
Sounds like we have a slogan for our boards.
Yeah.
The right data at the right time for the right audience. Boards.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I say about everything in plan.
Oh, nice. I like that.
That's my.
You're great about that. There we go.
Just a sec.
Dog problems again. I have like a coffee slushie right now. It's amazing.
Ooh. Is it warm? Do you get hot sitting in the sun there?
Yes, well, anything later in the afternoon, I start baking and then looking like a detective in a movie from the 20s, with the blinds coming down and like coming across my face. But
it was
yeah.
a summer day in Chicago. The heat was blistering.
Heat was blistering. The bells or the bridges were dinging.
You came into my office and complained about the air conditioning, and then he told me about what was going on.
All the things. At least.
What was that? Raymond Chandler? Did you ever read Raymond Chandler in school?
What books is that? Are there?
They're like, it's a private detective series. It's like noir, lit noir. Like, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now I need to over the long weekend. Some grade school books. Yeah. Get us away from video games, Mike. Cool. So
I got to play some video games. Is that what you said?
I know. Get Keenan and I away from the video games.
Oh,
but I guess Keenan, he'll be off the grid, so no worries. Yeah. So data provided at the right level, right data at the right time to the right audience. I think that's part of the research we're doing.
For the right price.
Keenan?
Yeah.
For the right price. Done. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I guess that kind of leads into don't like overwhelm, right?
Yeah.
Overwhelm.
At the same time, I think people like data density, but when they need to find something specific, the density can kind of be counterproductive. But
Right. It's like if everything's a priority, right? Nothing is, can't find it. All right. So allowing users to focus. Preventing insights, I guess that is not MVC, but we could think about that.
do you mind if I take a moment to play this back?
Yeah, please do.
Show off my reading skills. So at the end of Parker's journey, it starts to segue into Delaney's journey. So Parker has epics that house granular broken down work that can now be reported on. Delaney is watching these right-hand columns to understand what is upcoming and what could be worked on. Then that segues into Delaney's narrative. When Delaney is monitoring a team's work in flight, is Delaney a she?
I think they're all supposed to be like gender neutral, so it could be anyone.
So when Delaney is monitoring a team's work in flight, they need to be able to easily review and digest the current progress so that they can confidently report to stakeholders and leadership. This starts where, again, Parker has prioritized some work. Sprint planning is conducted, and that is a whole team, or at least Delaney and Parker are doing that? Or is it just Parker?
I mean, that depends on the organization. Hopefully it's the whole team.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ideally the whole team, I would say. But at least Parker and Delaney.
Okay. The sprint starts. The Sashas. It sounds like a band. The Sashas.
Yeah, the Sashas.
Some work. The work is moving across the workflow, and again, that's really just dependent on the team, right? What that workflow looks like, but there is a flow of the work. Stakeholders begin to ask when some of the work items might be complete, or if it will be complete by the end of the milestone or sprint. Delaney can answer that question because Delaney can visualize where the work is via the board and the work labels. And Delaney, let's talk about this one. What's going on here? I know where it is, but why or how long?
So that led to all these ones up here.
Oh, okay. Let's make that one pink as well. I'm a perfectionist, can you tell? Everything
You're a designer.
in order. Can't mess up the order. All right, so what happens now that Delaney can visualize the work? Does that satisfy the outcome in this job statement? Confidently report to stakeholders and leadership. I think we have a good story.
Cool.
Um,
I mean, I don't know if he or she would confidently be able to do it at this point in GitLab, but they can. What do you think, Keenan?
maybe over
I think it depends on what confidence means for that individual and for the company. It is difficult with the current form now, yes.
What could we do to make the confidence higher? Is that what these pink cards are about?
I think so.
I think there's also other product developments like iterations, firm down charts, cumulative flow diagrams that will help tell stories and enable them to plan better, which is part of this.
I wonder if part of the confidence might come from, is the state of these work items accurate? Like, are people actually maintaining the label state? Is that part of it?
Yep.
Yeah, and they probably aren't all the time.
That,
Go ahead.
I think actually the other card we chose, right, to talk through.
Let's see, let me go to the left here. Which one is that? Is it one of these jobs?
Oh,
I need to make sure my status is accurate, current, and quantifiable, so I can maintain a level of trust with stakeholders.
nice.
This is the labels, status, proper weighting. This is making sure it's in the right workflow step.
Cool.
Good
Let's
segue.
tell Sasha's story. That's Sasha's.
So this is after Delaney, it might be Delaney is trying to visualize the work, right, on the board, and they're like, Sasha, I don't really understand this. I need to tell Parker what's going on. Can you update this issue or tell me what's going on here?
I think that's a really great moment to capture here that there's a dialogue between Delaney and Sasha. Is that what you just articulated?
Yeah, I would say it's like Parker is asking, like a possible scenario. It could be like Parker is asking Delaney, and then Delaney has to go to Sasha to clarify what's happening.
Parker asks Delaney,
"Where's my feature at?
When will this be done?"
Or what state is it in? Is it on track? You know.
That's a better.
I would just say like what
thing, right? Is this on track?
Sure.
And then we really need like stick figures in our storyboard here. And then because that question rolls downhill like a rock, a big boulder, then because that's how organization hierarchies work, Delaney asks Sasha, is this on track?
Yeah. And I'm sure you could go up, like you just said, like someone above Parker asking too. So
there's a whole other part of this where manager, director, VP, CEO, board, somebody asks. Eventually it gets to Parker.
Cool.
Or Parker might just go right to Sasha too, right? That's part of it.
True.
That's how we try to operate.
Is that healthier? Is that like a better way of working?
It can be if the company culture supports that, right? And if the whole idea is like open and honest communication.
When we say this, if Parker is asking Sasha, is this an epic or is this an issue?
It's an issue.
Issue, yeah.
In this case.
Yeah, let's be specific there. Cool. What happens next? What does Sasha do?
Sasha
had meetings all day and didn't have lunch, so Sasha eats a bite.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. They'd probably be like looking at their merge requests and thinking about like what's blocking them or something like that, and then.
Well, I mean, hopefully they give an honest answer about the status of the work.
And they'd hopefully have all the labels up to date, right? Is, I guess, the ask.
What's the next?
I mean, so here's the thing though. If all of that information is up to date, Parker wouldn't need to ask Sasha. Maybe, right? That's the dream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
If I as Sasha have everything up to date, then the status of the work should be viewable.
Mm-hmm. So ideally, Sasha would be like, look at the issue, right?
Well, maybe ideally, it wouldn't be Sasha for this job. It would be Parker. Should we swap personas?
No, because I like it at this level because it's the smallest granular part that we're talking about in this flow. And that is often owned by the Sasha individual, keeping up their issues in MRs and, keeping passing through normal hygiene of the work with the right labels and the info and the weights and status.
Is it like the context is different though? It's like when reporting status would be Parker, and then like when working on it, I mean, I don't know what the scenario would be, but like when working on an issue, I need to ensure my status is accurate, current, and quantifiable, and that would be Sasha. Like, is it two different things, you think, Keenan?
I mean, it's probably 3 different tiers to this.
Yeah.
Right? Sasha needs to keep up with his MRs and issues. Delaney needs to keep up with the issues and maybe some keeping the epics, and Parker's probably dealing with keeping the epics up there.
I think, okay, so what you just said, and I think it just sunk in, is that really everyone needs to be able to do this, and then Sasha is probably the person at the end of the line getting asked this question. Is that kind of what you were saying, Keenan?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because if I'm keeping my epic up to date, that is being informed by the issues that are attached to it. And the MR is attached to those issues. Yeah, if I'm sitting there and I see an issue says it's in progress, but there's no MR attached, I'm probably going to ask, like, is this actually in progress? Like, or is there an MR ready?
So how does, I guess maybe it's like the other way. It's like, how does Sasha keep it accurate, current, and quantifiable then?
Do you think we were focusing on the right job? Is there another, maybe a job, or should we update this job statement?
Well, I think the reason it's hard is because we intentionally kept these as high level as we could when we were crafting the job stories for plan.
Okay.
Because regardless, this is a job plan is being hired to help solve.
Yeah. Maybe then we could talk about this as a scenario for this job, or we could either talk about it as like a scenario, like a use case, or a sub job. There are some articulation a level below this that we could articulate to make this workflow more concrete.
Or we could maybe define it and say, like, as a cross-functional product team, when reporting status, we need to be able to. I don't know. Either of those work for me. I'm good with whichever one we feel gets us where we need to go.
What are the other jobs we have here? When conducting product increment or sprint planning, my team needs to commit to delivering a realistic amount of work within a given time period so that stakeholders can understand what will be delivered and when.
Yep.
When reviewing a plan, I need to ensure that high-risk items can be identified and continually monitored so I can validate and modify mitigation plans. When implementing to a plan, I need to monitor progress so I can demonstrate the team is efficiently capturing value for our stakeholders. And then when working through a list of validated opportunities, I need to be able to understand effort and map ROI. Are any of these other jobs represented by Sasha?
This is probably Delaney Parker.
Yeah, those are Delaney Parkers.
Yeah.
What about the job where, and this might be like just a scenario or a use case, but where Sasha sees that work is ready to be picked up and then starts working on it and then is not done necessarily, but has needs review or needs to move it to the next state so that it can be, I don't know, moved to the next transition state. Is that kind of a scenario?
That's kind of, that's like this part, right?
Oh,
okay.
I can't see what you're saying.
I'm just highlighting this part. Hold on. That. Right?
Okay.
And then like, so other people know they can pick it up. So like, that's part of that job.
Let's try for a moment to write the narrative about that one. I need to be able to ensure my status is accurate, current, and quantifiable. Is that actually?
Do you agree with that, Keenan? Oh, that face.
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Let me ask another way. Why does Sasha need a Kanban board?
Yes, oftentimes.
Why is that?
So we can track his own work or their own work.
Yeah. I guess probably see what the rest of the team is doing as well, right? Or like.
Yeah. I mean, again, you know, we don't do this here, but at many other places. Teams get together and do a daily stand-up and walk through the board. And go, Mike, what are you working on today? What are you blocked by? What do you need help with? When's that going to be done? What are you picking up next, right? And you do that through a visualized workflow board. And sometimes it's like, oh, no, actually, that needs to be put into review. I finished it before I went home last night, and I forgot to move the ticket. Cool, we move that over. Who's picking it up? Now that's in needs review. We need somebody to go look over that MR and make sure it's ready to push forward. Like, all of this is powerful because it enables those conversations and those interactions to people on the team to help make sure work is flowing to the right.
Uh-huh. And that often needs a meeting. Like people aren't proactive about making sure it's up to date or being vocal or at least marking items as blocked.
Oftentimes, no.
Yeah.
Is it because maybe they rely on that meeting too much?
Well, we don't have that meeting and we still have that problem sometimes. So
Okay.
I don't know if you can blame the meeting.
Yeah, I think like
sometimes
usually a team, just like the people, they rely on that refinement, right? Which we don't always have. Go ahead.
I was saying, like I know it doesn't fit into the GitLab process and how we work for our async nature, but like there's part of me that does miss knowing the status of every issue on my team's board because I was in that meeting and we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Go look through my activity. A lot of times what I'm doing is going in and say like, hey, where's this issue at? You know, like, do you need help? Are you missing something? Hey, John, can we get this moving? Because I don't know the answer.
So would it be like,
I wonder if
we want to like
Delaney narrative, then it's like Delaney making sure that everything's accurate, that their team has updated the status of work items.
Yep.
Do you think, is that a true statement? I'm just kind of throwing things out there.
Oftentimes, like that's often what that role does. Yeah.
Oops. Okay. And it's okay to get down into the, specifics like clicking the screen to do things, right? Because this is a more granular use case that might involve actually saying, I'm just throwing things out here, but like Delaney selects the right board in the UI, and then Delaney looks at the board from left to right, looking down the list of work items, clicking into them and reading, comments or related merge requests, like, just saying like, it's okay to get down into that level of detail.
We got, what, 15 minutes?
Oh, wow, that went by fast, yeah.
I know, I really did.
Okay. Actually, thanks for that, Keenan, because we do need to bring these over to prioritization. One idea that Alexis and I were talking about was rather than essentially the two of you, right? But like with me facilitating, instead of just the two of you prioritizing by level of effort and value, to do a follow-on session, or maybe asynchronously, but I think like a synchronous would be more efficient for prioritization, but to work with the engineers to do this level of effort, user value matrix kind of thing. What would you think about that? Would that be something you'd like to do soon? Like maybe next?
No, absolutely. I think it's, we'll have difficulty getting a critical mass of the engineering team just due to time zones, but
yeah, it could be like just adding an engineering manager to the mix. So
do this with Donald and John if we can.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then Alexis, can you help me make sure that the opportunity cards are on this matrix?
I can.
Thank you.
Who has the like very ominous crow in the background?
The ominous crow.
It's like, "Arr, arr, arr." Anyway. Dogs, crows. It's fine.
I think my house is about to blow over. Jeez. It's windy out there. I don't know
that's not actually.
you see the movement of the bamboo?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What the heck is happening?
I live in a wind tunnel. We live at the base of this 2,000, 3,000 foot mountain, and the wind from the Pacific comes over the mountain and like accelerates over it. Kind of like a laminar flow, like on an airplane wing.
Oh my gosh.
For our neighborhood.
Just stand outside if you want to dry your hair.
Oh, it reminds me, my stylist is going to be here in 15 minutes to
Oh,
he cuts my hair on the patio. We both wear masks.
oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll set up the prioritization session. I think you mentioned John and Donald. Ideally. Who?
Yeah, if you can
Cool.
get both of them, yes.
I thought you said Kane. I was like, I don't know. Who's Kane? Should we
Some
invite
new person. Abel. Wow. These jokes are just getting better and better as the day goes on.
have to edit this video quite a bit in Final Cut before I post it.
That's part of the fun. You just, it's who we really are. Okay. I think we have a lot to go over. And I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Donald and John or Jake or whomever might have ideas too. So.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I mean, again, like I think there's value to asking a lot of these questions for them as they are the Delaney, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe we could do that. We could do a Delaney flow with them before the prioritization.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
I think that makes sense.
So before we go, I want to take about 10 minutes to do a quick retro on this. And that's in this bottom right corner.
Mm-hmm.
And if you could, if the two of you could just drop like a couple of ideas into each of these columns, that would really help me a lot. It'd be really good feedback for me. And I'll set a timer for about 5 minutes. So, and don't feel any pressure to like generate a bunch of ideas. Just, a couple for each column or one for each column would be great too.
Awesome. That one's making me laugh, Keaton.
What I'm writing?
And then I thought you were like spelling it weird, so I thought it was saying hallucination. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, you all have had a marathon of collaborative sessions today. Really appreciate you sticking with it.
Yeah.
No, it's great though. That went by really fast.
I know it. When Keenan said, what, in the next 10 minutes? I was like, what? Where did the time go? Okay. What about 2.5 minutes left? Okay, everybody done?
Yes.
All right.
Oof. Sounded like a airplane noise, and I didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Like when it's okay to open your laptop
Yeah.
or even your electronics. Yeah.
Or when you have to pee really bad and you've been holding it in because you've been taking off. Anyway, maybe you can edit that out too, Mike. Cool.
I like this idea of some pre-work before the meeting. That's awesome. I think that's good. And now that we have some flows on the board, I think we could probably ask John and Donald to maybe do that, because now they'll have examples to see, and then we can create a lane for each of them, right? For Delaney, a lane for Delaney. I think it'd be tough to do that just on a blank canvas though. So, but yeah, it's a really good idea. And replicate this more async for time zones. Totally agree. That's why I like having on one mural board. That's like our artifact of truth. I think as we get, as this is more socialized on the team, I think doing it async is totally feasible. I think people need to be, my assumption is that people need to be familiar with the format though, but I'm open to be, open to be challenged on that, obviously. And then, yeah, shouldn't do this after a 4-hour hackathon. It was a nice boards day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel like better defined jobs to be done may help here. Let me make a note about this one. Did you write that, Keenan, or was that Alexis?
That was me.
What could be better about the jobs to make it go easier?
I just feel like, I mean, to Keenan's point, they're very high level, and we did that on purpose, but we haven't really taken them a lot further. I don't know if we could break them down, or like you were saying, have like job steps, have those kind of sub jobs to think about. That might make it a little easier to focus.
Cool. All right. And then went well, great discussion, empathizing with other teammates by talking through flows, involving more teammates in this kind of discussion, the last session. Oh, okay, you liked, was that you, Keenan?
I liked it.
Oh, that was, okay.
I don't know, I liked both sessions. I'm the same. I think that was the first time some people have been exposed to this kind of thing, and they really liked it, so.
Cool. So Keenan, you wrote the yellow ones, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then taking the time to think at a higher level.
Mm-hmm. Just, like zooming out of epic boards and thinking about all of this at a higher level, boards in general. I mean, it's hard. That's a hard thing to ideate on your own. So this has been good.
Cool. Nice. All right. Again, thank you so much for your willingness to do this and your participation. And next steps are to loop in Don and John. John and Donald. I knew I was going to do that.
Donald, it's fine.
I like 2 seconds or 2 minutes ago, I was like, I'm totally going to mess that up next time I say it, and I did. Yeah.
Add it to the edit list. It's fine.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll take the next steps if that's cool. Does anybody else feel strongly that they want to, or?
No, if you want to, then
Okay.
I know you are more than capable. So.
I tried. I don't know if I'm capable, but I pretend I am.
Heck yeah, you are.
Have a great 4th of July observed tomorrow, and be safe with your family.
Thank you. You too. Don't blow away getting your haircut today.
Yeah.
And I hope you look.
I don't think you'll be able to cut my hair outside. I just realized. Oh well.
Oh,
Hopefully,
well, we'll see.
not sick or something. All right.
You're gonna have an interesting haircut on Tuesday, then, huh?
Right.
Like, okay. Anyway. Well, thank you for facilitating this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. See you
Have
on
a
the
great
flip
weekend.
side. Have a good weekend.
Bye, y'all.